Welcome, everyone. We will call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, May 27th, 2025, and the time is 7 p.m. Melissa, will you please take roll call?
Yes. Melissa Denton. Here. Carl Hubner. Here. Andy Cabarrus.
Here.
Denise Meyer. Richard Poore. And also seated at the board table is Superintendent Bob Thompson. And that's it for now.
All right. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Board members, in your packets you have some meeting minutes from our May 13th meeting and May 15th meeting. So if you'll look those over. I'll be looking to receive a motion to accept the meeting minutes from our May 13th regular meeting and our May 15th non-public session.
So moved.
Any questions? All approved?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to public comments. So, Melissa, looks like we have one.
That's correct. Mr. Elliott.
Great. Mark, if you could please state your full name and your address for the record.
Mark Elliott, 15 Hastings Drive. I'm here to talk about the data governance plan. Thankfully, this is my students' last year at Hempstead School District. The school district is awful in its management of data governance. EHAB was adopted in 2019 by the school district and revised in 2022. In the last 6 years, the school district has consistently failed to abide by.
Thanks, Joe.
In the 6 years since its adoption, the school district has continually failed to abide by the rules set out in that policy, despite the fact that the staff gets in front of the board and reaffirms its compliance with said policy. I urge the board to start an examination of the policy and the school district's compliance with the policy and all the rules and regulations set forth, and force the school district staff to go back and actually abide by the policy and comply with the policy. My student has seen some pretty terrible things on the internet at the school and been given access to TikTok, ChatGPT, and other websites that are wholly inappropriate for children under 13 years of age. And I'm afraid of what's going to happen for a student who either sees something worse or who is harmed physically or mentally by content they see on the internet as a result of the staff's failure to comply with the policy. Thank you.
Board members, any questions or comments? Okay. Moving on to school highlights with Amy Bernard.
Good evening, everyone.
I'm pleased to say that I have many friends that are going to share the school highlights from the middle school tonight. But just a couple things that I wanted to share. One, I think it's really special for me to be able to announce that our very own teacher, Jennifer Howard, has been selected as a semifinalist, one of 9, for New Hampshire Teacher of the Year for 2026. So shout out to Jen as she works through that process. We're so excited. And then I have a very large group of student leaders who are going to share some highlights that have been going on in the middle school the last few weeks. They really have put so much work in to make Wellness Week in particular possible, so I think it's really important that we hear from them. And before they come up, I do want to thank our staff who made this possible, including Mrs. Karpinski, Mrs. Rubin, Mr. Mayu, and Mrs. Mayu. So come on up, guys.
Hi, my name is Grace Benuskevich. I'm in 7th grade, and I am pleased to share a summary of our recent Wellness Week held from May 12th to May 16th, which brought together our school community in a week-long celebration of physical, mental, and emotional well-being. The aim of Wellness Week was to promote a holistic approach to health and wellness across our school community. Our goals were to encourage healthy habits among students and staff, raise awareness about mental health and self-care, and build a stronger sense of community and belonging, and provide tools and resources for ongoing wellness.
My name's Aaliyah McCalligan. On Monday, our 8th grade students took the lead by visiting every grade level flex class to facilitate peer-led wellness lessons. Their leadership and creativity were inspiring, and it was a wonderful opportunity for cross-grade connection and collaboration.
Hi, I'm Kiana George. Tuesday, during our Wellness Week, we had the honor of welcoming motivational speaker Ed Garrity, who shared his powerful message about building a positive culture rooted in respect and gratitude. His words resonated deeply with our students and staff alike. The same day, students contributed to our gratitude wall during lunches, reflecting on what they're thankful for and spreading a sense of appreciation throughout the school. We also ran a school-wide Spirit Day, and everyone wore green. The color green represents mental health awareness. Students wore t-shirts, sweatshirts that were designed by student leaders.
Hi, my name is Mia Castelletto. Wednesday, during SAS reading tests, our students made an effort to uplift one another by delivering positive notes, mints, sensory stickers, and classroom-appropriate fidgets. Small gestures that make a big impact. We also had a special visit from Bailey and Tucker, our school therapy dogs in training. Their presence brought joy and calm during a busy day, and we look forward to seeing them more in the future.
Hi, my name is Mariah Zykowski. On Thursday, it was our official Wellness Day. The highlight of the week was our Wellness Day, where students had the opportunity to sign up for a variety of engaging and relaxing workshops. From a fun run to cookie decorating, Zentangle art, self-defense, a cozy corner, and much more. There was something for everyone. It was a fantastic way for students to explore different aspects of wellness, physical, emotional, and creative, while having fun and connecting with peers. Throughout the week, it was inspiring to see our students so engaged in activities that promote not just individual well-being, but also a stronger school culture.
A special thank you goes out to our staff and student leaders who helped make this week possible. Special thanks to Ms. Karpinski, Ms. Mayu, Mr. Mayu, and Ms. Rubin for all their extra efforts to help make this week a week enjoyed by all. We're proud of the way HMS continues to prioritize wellness and look forward to building on this momentum in the months ahead.
And now we have two of our 8th graders who are going to share some transitions, because we have our fourth graders, incoming fifth graders coming in, and there's a lot of transition activities for them. And then, of course, our eighth grade students are going to be transitioning to high school. So these guys are going to share some of these events.
The school year is almost over, and some exciting changes are coming. Our fourth graders will soon be joining us at HMS as brand new fifth graders, and our awesome eighth graders are ready to move up to high school. We are excited to share the following events to support our incoming fifth graders. Incoming fifth grade parent night, Thursday, May 29th, from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. in the HMS cafeteria. The purpose of this event is to familiarize parents with the middle school expectations, resources, and support systems, fostering a collaborative partnership between home and school. The second event is the All About HMS Assembly, Tuesday, June 3rd, in the HCS gym. HMS principal, the student counselor, and student ambassadors will travel to HCS to conduct an assembly for the entire fourth grade class, providing insight into middle school life, academic expectations, and extracurricular opportunities. Fourth graders visit HMS Meet and Greet Day, Friday, June 6th. Fourth grade students will visit HMS for a guided tour, allowing them to familiarize themselves with the school environment, meet staff members, and engage in introductory activities.
Our eighth graders are almost high schoolers. Wow, we're proud of everything you've done and can't wait to celebrate with you. Here's what's coming up. Eighth grade semi-formal dance, Wednesday, June 12th in the HMS gym. Get ready to dress up and dance the night away. We're bringing back this special event to celebrate with you. Tickets will be available soon. The 8th grade field trip to Canopy Lake Park, Thursday, June 13th. This fun day at the amusement park is just for our 8th graders to enjoy some time together before high school. Our 8th grade graduation ceremony is Wednesday, June 19th at 6 p.m. in the HMS gym. It's time to celebrate your hard work. Families and staff are invited to cheer you on as you finish middle school and get ready for high school. We're so proud of our 8th graders. You've grown a lot this year, and we're excited to send you off with smiles and celebration.
Here are some upcoming events. The NHSAS testing math, 5th through 8th grade, is May 28th. HMS Myler for all grades is May 29th. HMS Dance, Beach Bash, 6 to 8 p.m., grades 5 to 7 is May 30th. 5th grade field trip to Seacoast Science Center is June 3rd. 5th grade field day is May 10th. Field day 6th grade is June 11th. Spring Sports Awards Night is June 11th. Field day 7th grade is June 12th. 6th grade Freedom Trail field trip is June 13th. Field day 8th grade is June 16th. NJHS ceremony is June 16th. And Hawk Awards is June 17th.
So we have a lot going on at the middle school, and I thank these guys for helping me share it. So thank you, guys.
Thank you all very much. I'll just say I love the idea around student wellness and mental health, so that's awesome. You all did a great job presenting. Thank you all for coming. And board members, any questions or comments for our group or Amy Bernard? Okay, thank you all. And I know you have homework and dinners to eat, so don't feel like you need to stick around. If you want to, you are more than welcome to, but you are free to go if you want. And we are going to have Amy Bernard come back up to give us an update on the Washington, D.C. trip.
Yeah, so this was my first experience going on a Washington, D.C. trip with a group of 8th graders, and let me tell you, I'm still catching up on my sleep. It was a lot, but it was action-packed, and our 8th graders really took advantage of the experience. When I say that I'm proud of this class, that is an extreme understatement. Mr. Thompson, how many years have you gone on this trip?
My 16th trip.
And what did you say to me about this group of 8th graders?
They were the most respectful, responsible, polite group that I've ever been with, and I've never said that before.
Truly, they took advantage of every opportunity. One of the best stories I can share is that our group was outside of the Martin Luther King Memorial, and our tour guide was giving us some history, and one of the students actually stopped him mid-discussion and recited a part of Martin Luther King's speech, one of his speeches. Truly outstanding. They took it seriously. They were so well behaved. I didn't even see cell phones outside of taking pictures. It was really just such a fantastic group of kids learning about our country and seeing this wonderful place and exploring all of it. And they truly got so much out of it. So with that, I have a couple of our 8th graders that are going to share some highlights from the trip. And before they do that, I just want to thank our chaperones. So these people, I could not have pulled this off without them, and we did a lot of lead-up meetings to make this happen. And again, this was my first experience, so I really leaned on them. They were just outstanding. And I will say also, I fell asleep a few times, woke up to 24 text messages about some things that were happening that they took care of. So thank you to them. So those people would be our chaperones, Mrs. Rubin, Mr. Bowles, Miss Hewitt, Miss Benson, Mrs. Martinez, Mr. Bernard, Mrs. Plummer, Mr. Thompson, and Mrs. Nork. So really, truly, they were just on duty 24/7 and amazing. So I'm going to let these guys tell you about their experience.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Perry. I was one of the many students to be lucky enough to go to Washington, D.C. We're thrilled to share the highlights from our recent 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., a 3-day journey filled with rich history, civic learning, and unforgettable experiences for our last year here at HMS.
Hello, I'm Ella Watson. I also had the privilege of attending our Washington, D.C. trip. Our first day, we explored Philadelphia. Our adventure began early in the morning as we departed Hampstead for Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Upon arrival, we met with knowledgeable local tour guides and participated in walking tours of historical sites that brought early American history to life. Highlights included Carpenter's Hall, Congress Hall, the Betsy Ross House, the Liberty Bell, Christ Church, Franklin Court, and the exterior of Independence Hall. We were able to engage and reflect, gaining a deeper appreciation for the foundations of our democracy.
Our second day is where we honored service and explored museums. Day 2 began at Arlington National Cemetery, where we witnessed the solemn changing of the guard ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We also visited the Kennedy grave sites and the Challenger Memorial, deepening our understanding of national service and sacrifice. After lunch, we toured the Ford's Theater and continued to a powerful and moving monument and memorial tour, with stops at the Washington Monument and Reflecting Pool, Vietnam Veterans Memorial, Korean War Memorial, Lincoln Memorial, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial, and the World War II Memorial. These visits prompted meaningful conversations about history, sacrifice, and the values we strive to uphold.
On our third day, we visited Washington, D.C.'s landmarks and memorials. The following morning, we headed to Washington, D.C. to continue our exploration. We started the day by touring the Capitol building. We took a walk to the National History Museum and to the American History Museum, each offering interactive and educational exhibits that sparked curiosity and discovery. The afternoon ended with an exterior view of the White House with many opportunities for pictures.
We concluded our trip with a special dinner cruise, being provided with a chance to unwind, reflect, and celebrate an unforgettable experience with our peers. Thank you.
Any questions for them or me?
No? I'm always jealous that they go on that trip, and I can't wait for my incoming 5th grade daughter to be able to go on it. I'll just say a huge thanks to all of the chaperones. I know it's a big undertaking to travel with a bunch of students and manage that group. So kudos to all of you for a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. before we get into data governance, I was going to have Denise tell us about a donation that the district is receiving from the Lions Club.
Thank you, Andy. Yes, we are in receipt of a very generous donation from our partners over at the Hampstead Lions Club, a $500 donation being made to support our 8th grade semi-formal. And here with us this evening, we have a member of the Director of Board, Veronica Shelley, who just wanted to present the check to everyone. You have one of them behind you.
Yeah, of course. That would be great. Right. Moving on, we will cover our data governance plan, review and reaffirmation with Nicole Tomaselli and Joe Dion.
Hello, good evening, everyone. In your packets, you will see copies of our recent data governance plan, which has some changes for this year. I would like to be sure that you know that this document is a limited release document, so we'll be collecting it at the end of the meeting. I did email it to you through an encrypted email earlier this afternoon for your preview, but I thought you might want the printed copy as well, but we will be collecting them. Per RSA 91A5A, we are allowed to make this document limited release for our own protections, given the current climate of cybersecurity threats. That's been the guidance we've received, is to keep these documentations off of our website, but only for discussion amongst board members and data governance committee members. So Joe is going to review some of the changes we've made to the plan this year, and then if you have questions, we're happy to answer them.
For our annual data governance adoption this year, we've conducted several training sessions with staff and school leaders as the data governance plan requires. One of those training sessions was a tabletop with the Atom Group on 2/20/25, which I've spoke about in previous meetings. Our IT team has a strong connection with the Atom Group, and we make changes throughout the year to our infrastructure and to our systems to make sure that we are compliant with their guidance. At the tabletop, they have made several recommendations to update our incident response plan, which is another internal document. The IRP is a document strategy that outlines how an organization will detect, respond to, and recover from cybersecurity attacks or other disruptions. It's essentially a playbook for IT professionals to follow when a security incident occurs, aiming to minimize damage, reduce recovery time, and ensure business continuity. We have made changes per the recommendations to the document that had internal discussions about redundancy of communications should our systems be inaccessible during an incident. Changes include updated contact information for all H-team leaders and our sending schools director of technology. We also have sample communication templates should our district experience a cyber attack. On page 5 of the data governance plan in front of you, you will notice that we have updated the team for this year. On page 20, when we discuss trainings, I want to talk about some of the trainings that we've done. On February 12th at Hampstead Middle School and March 11th at Hampstead Central School, cybersecurity awareness training for staff was conducted. We are also going to schedule the Adam Group to come in, visit, and train professional staff during the next school year. We are also looking at times to host training for paraprofessionals, custodians, and other support staff. We've also recently signed up for the State of New Hampshire cybersecurity trainings through New Horizons and Educate 360. At this point, our internal tech team is already accessing these trainings, but we are also planning to use this database of asynchronous and live training events with support staff who sit in roles that are more frequently targeted and involve sensitive data. On page 23, under the Disaster Recovery Plan, the TDRP outlines critical staff, responsibilities, and processes in the event of a disaster or critical data loss. The district maintains a list of all critical systems and data, including contact information. Changes that we have made here is also including the H-Team text for the contact list, and also adding Pinkerton as a point of contact. On page 47 of the data governance document, you will see that passwords will be held to at least a minimum secure standard set by internal IT security policies following the NIST guidelines, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology.
So I realize this document is 47 pages. There's quite a lot of information in here around our data access, how we process data requests, how we collect data, how we validate, and then also release, report, and store data. We're open to any questions that you might have.
So a couple years ago, Nashua got hacked,
Yeah.
and they had to go months, if not a couple years back with some sort of stuff. If that were to happen, can you kind of run me through what our response would be, like a basic version?
Yeah, so we have an incident response plan, and we've actually worked through similar scenarios as an exercise, both with our leadership team, a smaller cohort of the tech team, and then also with the professionals, the cybersecurity team at Adam, which is connected to Primex, which is our risk management company. So in that incident response plan, we have kind of an outline of what we would do first, then next, last. But it would involve us recognizing the vulnerabilities of all of our systems being inaccessible. So one area of focus this year was to generate contact lists and find methods of getting in touch with people that would not require us to be on our internal networks. And then also creating documentation that would be shared with the community and having that also available should we not have access to, say, Google Drive, where we would typically store templates and things like that. That will be offline. But certainly we have learned from the unfortunate incidences in Nashua, Pelham, and a handful of other municipalities. I don't know if you want to add to that.
We do have hard copies of these documents printed out at the SAU office and our technology office to follow in case of outages.
Previous information, like backed up, do you have it backed up somewhere on a regular basis so that if everything somehow got compromised, you'd be able to restore it later?
Yes, we do 30-day incremental backups. We also do redundant data storage between the schools. We utilize our dark fiber between the Hampstead Middle School and the Hampstead Central School. So if something happened to one of the buildings, we would be able to retain that data in real time, including virtual machines, student data, and district data.
Awesome, thank you.
Into that. I work in the land of cybersecurity, so this is going to be a question maybe you haven't received. In terms of redundancy, do you have any offsite locations? You talk about redundancy between two buildings. Do you have storage that is offsite in another part of the country? So what can happen in many cases is hackers may attack like New England area, for example. And then so people have things that are redundant out in servers that are in the West Coast to avoid if something goes down in that area, making sure they still have their backups. Do we have something like that, or is it really just between the two schools?
It's between the two schools and multiple network-attached storage devices. We do not currently store offline data and pay for that service. It is quite expensive. We have looked into it. We are going to continue to investigate some better methods that are a little bit cheaper than going with a company like Veeam or some other online storage.
I just want to add too that a lot of our data that we store as an organization is housed in companies that are outsourced. So for example, PowerSchool, we don't store that data here on site. That's hosted elsewhere. Nessus is where our student services data is stored. That's also outsourced. Tyler and Ivy are other systems that we have cloud backup for. But that is a fair question. And it could be a natural disaster too. When we think about hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, data centers often get hit just like everyone else. And so it's important to have that redundancy in different parts of the country. That is absolutely something we can follow up on. Denise?
I think it's also important to note when we talk about some of the recent cyber attacks, if you look at Nashua and Pelham, there was a common theme, and that was through their HVAC, cloud-based HVAC systems. We don't have a cloud-based HVAC system. Now, that doesn't mean we're not vulnerable to other types of attacks, but that one in particular, I met with Joe and members of his team after the Pelham attack to sort of do an after-action review, and it's hard to do an after-action review where the incidents involved a totally different system that we have, where everything is internal. When you have two school buildings, it's a little bit easier to manage.
Beyond just cyber hacks and data breaches, I'm just thinking back to Mark Elliott's comments around basically like permissible use of devices and things like that. And I guess I also know that he's had concerns for multiple years. So are we covering those types of things in those trainings that you do with staff?
Yes, we are. We are training, we are covering those things in trainings. I would also like to mention that we have 2 layers of security for the students. We have sonic wall firewalls running content filter and antivirus protection. We also have Securely, which is a front-end system that runs on top of their Chromebooks that they cannot remove. And we do not currently allow access to certain sites like TikTok and ChatGPT. And if a student is to tamper with those security settings that we put in place, that is actually a violation of our acceptable use policy.
So our staff and our IT staff learn content filtering right now. The trainings focus more on being weary about phishing campaigns and not clicking on emails that might include attachments that might come from an unknown source. So I just want to make sure we clarify those are 2 kind of different things at this point.
Sure.
But good classroom management is always part of our PD, and knowing how to manage Chromebooks and students with Chromebooks is part of that.
Right.
We do have an acceptable use policy that pretty clearly defines.
Yeah, I would argue that should be part of the conversation or part of the training in terms of staff training of let's incorporate that classroom management, and if you see this happening, then here's what you should do in terms of reporting it.
Yeah, yep, certainly.
I know there's certain sites that can go around filters.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have software that scans for that, figures it out, and then blocks it for the next time?
Yeah, I believe all of our firewalls are adaptive, and Joe can certainly speak to that much more clearly, but these are learned, these firewalls learn behaviors and add sites to the blacklist. Maybe you want to answer this as a question about, do the filters modify and change with use, like if they pick things up?
We review, so we get emails and notifications on blocks. Part of part of our to-dos. Our team is to review that. We also, this is something that we pay for, so they're always constantly adding to these blacklists, both at the firewall level and also at the student content filter level unsecurely.
So like say if another school finds something that we have the same company, they will then add it and then it will get blocked in our school, like that kind of thing?
Yes.
Awesome.
If we have that category blocked or selected to be blocking for students, then yes, absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
And if I could just take the opportunity, because the issue was raised in regards to social media, and I'm unaware of Mr. Elliott's specific concern, and I will point him to policy KE, which is our policy on public complaints. However, it does raise a good point about the impacts that social media has on our schools, especially when children are bringing devices to school and they have unfettered access to all forms of social media. The school is continuously, both schools are continuously responding to student use of social media, both here at school when it is not sanctioned, when phones are supposed to be in the locker, and then also on the weekend. It is a constant battle of educating students, educating parents, holding students accountable. The first day of school, we had an issue where somebody took an embarrassing video of a child on the school bus and posted it to social media on the first day of school. We've also had issues where students are taking videos of other students in the restroom. And the school is doing the best possible job they can to enforce our very strict cell phone policy, which says the phone goes in the locker at the start of the day and it remains there. So I don't know if Mr. Elliott's complaint is specific to that, but I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to raise awareness to an issue that is really having a major impact on both of our schools.
Well, and something that I don't know if all the parents know, but New Hampshire is a two-party state, so if anybody's recording anything and they don't have the permission of the other people, then it is illegal. So beyond just the school policy, there's legal ramifications beyond that that would have to be dealt with.
And I think the school does a great job. Like if you know, I know many of our board members have been here during the day. If you walk around, you don't see students on their devices. They're not walking around with them. They're not allowed to. You go out to recess and you see kids playing. It's wonderful. You know, but there's a certain place where our enforcement stops, you know, and a student who has the will to carry that cell phone and bring it into a restroom or use it on the bus, you know, that's where that enforcement on our end becomes pretty difficult to do.
Two questions. If I don't know if this is working. Chromebooks. So if I bring my Chromebook home, it still prevents me from getting on websites, even though I'm on my home Wi-Fi.
Device it, if it's one of our student devices, then yes, absolutely,
Okay.
Including during the weekends.
And then my other question, follow up to the cell phones. I believe the legislation has passed for the ban in schools. Is that something we'll address specifically at a future meeting?
Yeah, the issue with the current legislation is that there's several carve-outs that actually allow for student use of cell phones that I would say are less restrictive than what we currently have in policy. There was also, as part of Governor Ayotte's original budget proposal, there was $1 million of an investment for schools to be able to enact and enforce policies around cell phones. So I don't know that the passing of legislation will be a silver bullet, but I do think there's continued efforts that we need to make. You know, we've had, you know, the screening of screenagers this year at both schools. We've had assemblies and advisory conversations, and it's you know, the reality of it is that it's a conversation that's just going to continue to happen, and anytime we have the opportunity to have that conversation, especially here, I think we should take advantage of it.
So the funding went away in the current legislation, correct? For
So that the House and the Senate are talking to each other, and in one of them there's an outright ban, and one of them there's some of the language, I believe, that allows for some usage. So we don't know what it'll look like until it goes through, as far as I know.
Yeah, and it allows to create some exceptions by building administration. It allows, you know, for certain activities in a class, whereas, our policies, mainly our procedures actually, they're pretty black and white. It goes in the locker at the beginning of the day.
I just knew there was originally one of the, I forget whose, there was money on the table to give to schools to help do something.
Yeah, and a lot of them are purchasing those pouches that the phone goes in at the beginning of the day. It stays in there. I have talked to a lot of superintendents, and there's been a lot of mixed reviews from some of the districts that have implemented them.
Board members, any other questions around the data governance plan? Now, Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are looking for a motion to approve or
Yes.
essentially reaffirm the data governance plan for 2025-26?
Yes, reaffirm.
Okay. I will make a motion to reaffirm the data governance plan for 2025-2026.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All approved.
Thank you so much. I'll be looking to collect those packets back at the end of the meeting.
Yes, sounds great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. All right, moving on to our 2025-26 tuition rates. Jeff Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, you have a memo, and we may be able to project as well, possibly, on my proposed rates for the 2025-26 tuition. This is tuition. We have a couple different types of tuition that are paid, and this is the tuition which would be paid by someone seeking to send their student into our district who does not live in our district or reside in our district. So your cost for 25-26 for kindergarten would be $12,650. That's not our in-district tuition rate. That's for out-of-district. Elementary, $25,300. Middle school, $27,600. Special education, $50,600. But you'll note that that is a rather open number. If a student is going to be entering our district with special education needs, I think we'd be having a discussion on what specialized resources would be needed. Those are not included in this cost. Thank you, Joe. So I based this rate on our historic tuition rates. I compare to the Department of Ed's cost per pupil, annual cost per pupil study, and I adjust going forward by the difference between our most recent budget, which was subject to the cost per pupil, and I advance it the current year, and I advance it the following year as well to come up with the tuition rate for the 25-26 year. So I look at several different factors to bring this together. This would be paid by a situation where someone simply decides to send their student into our district, or perhaps is placed here for a different reason. We want to have those rates published so that we know, and the placing agency knows what our rates are.
A student may come into the district tuition.
So under policy JFAB, our non-resident tuition is ultimately approved by the board.
So for our in-district, I've included $4,500 for our regular full-day tuition cost, which is unchanged from the previous 10 years.
Yep. I appreciate the decision to kind of keep that stable and make it as affordable for families as possible.
Mm.
Board members, any other questions on tuition rates?
Could I just add, I know that we've had some conversation about full-day kindergarten, and if we had the space, that would be something that the board would be interested in exploring. It's important to recognize that our $4,500 of tuition essentially is sort of offset by what we're missing in adequacy aid if we had a full-time program. When you factor in a couple of different factors. So when you look at, we get $4,500 per student. The cost is much more significant than that. And then we're losing aid that we could be receiving from the state. So from a financial standpoint, if the capacity at the central school were to allow for full-day kindergarten, the data would support implementing that from a financial standpoint.
I'll make a motion to accept the 2025-2026 tuition rates as proposed.
Second. Any other questions or comments? All approved. Okay, moving on to 2025-26 school meal pricing with Jeff Dowd.
Here we are. Joe, if you wouldn't mind just blowing up, if you could blow up the middle of that. So every year, as part of our USDA program, we run an analysis in the business office with a tool that's provided by the Department of Ed for determining if our paid lunch prices are enough. We receive support from the federal government and some from the state government for what our typical costs would be. And there's a risk that we could be underpricing our full paid meals if we're subsidized by federal funds. So the federal government must make sure that we are charging a rate that's going to carry that end of it and not be overly subsidized by the aid that we receive for free and reduced lunches. We are a little bit behind in where we should be, and as of right now, you can see we have, at the very, very top, we have our breakfast prices. I'm not making a recommendation to increase those at all. For lunch, for elementary, our current cost is $3.10. I'm proposing to go to $3.20. Middle school, $3.35 to $3.45, and adult, $4.25 to $4.35. So that's about a dime just for lunch, elementary, middle school, and for adult meals as well. And you can see how we compare. Lisa Gove of my office put this together, the survey of local districts, and we're within range, I'm thinking.
Board members, any questions about proposed meal prices? Okay. I will make a motion to approve the new rates for school year 2025-2026. All approved. All right, now moving on to student services, the end of year presentation with Melissa McDonald.
Good evening. Wait for the presentation to get up and then we can get started. So I am happy to provide you with an end-of-year update for our Student Services Department. Just a reminder of our team, I am happy to share that we have a new administrative assistant who had her first solo day today, Jessica Kate. She comes to us from Hampstead Central School. We were fortunate to have the ability for Jessica to do some cross-training with Jordan before she needed to part ways, and Jess has come rolling up her sleeves and ready to dig in. So I'm excited for her to be joining our team. Just a reminder that Student Services is a very large umbrella, so we have many different categories that fall underneath. We have the students that come into us on IEPs, preschool, 504 students, school counseling, nursing, ESOL, as well as McKinney-Vento. So the state of New Hampshire is required to provide each LEA or each school district with a document that monitors how we have performed in different areas that they pull from us. This is based, we received this in the spring, and it's based on a previous school year. So we've just received the 23-24 school year LEA determination. There are 4 different categories in which each LEA within the state can fall under, and Hampstead did fall under the needs assistance category. We were one of 104 LEAs that fell within that specific category out of 174 within the state. So what does that mean? That means that I am required to attend training that is provided by the Department of Education. I'm also required to set some goals with the team on areas that I'll review on this slide with you on where we feel that we could make some improvement, and then also report out on those goals to the department next school year. So this slide just reviews the 4 areas in which we are providing information or that they are pulling information from us. So the first area is results-based, and you can see that this is one of the sections in which we fell into that needs assistance category. In this area specifically, under indicator 5A, which is our educational environments, that is one area in which we will be focusing on. A score of 2 is not necessarily a good thing. You want a score of 0 or 1. So that will be an area of focus for the upcoming school year. And then the indicators 7A1 through 7C2, those are the preschool outcomes. So our POMS, our preschool outcome measures, is taken through an assessment that every school district is required to administer for students in preschool on IEPs. The state of New Hampshire has just adopted what's called the DRDP, or the Desired Results Developmental Profile. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. And so the results that you see up there are based on the previous assessment that was given, where school districts could choose between AEPSI or TS Gold. They've now decided that all school districts will use the same assessment. I'm not sure how our results will turn out for a year from now, because that will be a new way of assessing all the areas of our preschoolers. But again, this is another focus area for the upcoming school year to see if we can improve those scores. The second area that was provided was assessment, and again, this was a needs. This is actually a needs intervention area, so we did not score quite as high in this one as we did on the first section. One area that we are struggling in is the disproportionate number of students who are opting out of our New Hampshire state assessment system, so New Hampshire SAS. We have met internally with SAU administration as well as building principals, and we are going to start planning on how to get messaging out about how important it is to participate in these assessments. In the third area, compliance, we were within the meets requirements range. One area to note in this is that we did not have any disproportionality with discipline as it was reported. And then the fourth area is considered additional or other factors. And again, we were meets requirements within this area as well. So I do have my 2 focus areas that I'll be setting goals on to share with the state. Just an update on our percentage of special education students by grade level. So the bottom chart was what I had shared with you back in November. On the top chart is our data as of May 1st of 2025. You can see that there have been a couple of more drastic shifts within our preschool and our kindergarten percentages. Preschool has gone down from 82% of students on IEPs to 69%. This could be due to movement or students that responded to their early intervention and have actually been discharged from their IEP. Kindergarten went from 11% up to 20%. As students start to settle into their school year, oftentimes we find some more referrals in that grade level, and it could be students who did not have a preschool experience or just have had some new concerns surface as the school year has gone on. Other grade levels haven't shifted too drastically, maybe a percentage of 2 or 2, and again, that could just be based on moves or students who have been recently discharged or added to an IEP. This is our number of special education students broken down by grade level, so that gives you the hard numbers. Pre-K through 12, we do have a total of 263 students on IEPs, and that does keep us above the state average, so we are at 22% as a district. Out of district, so my budget update as of May 1st, 2025, our out of district tuition costs have calculated to a total of $1,909,904.06. Out of district transportation is $594,458.04 for a total all-in cost so far of $2,504,362.10. Keeping in mind, out-of-district tuition costs is mainly due to students who are placed in an approved special ed setting. However, it can also include our charter school students who require specially designed instruction within their school setting. I wanted to be able to give you an update on the development of our RISE program at Hampstead Central School. So we've talked a little bit about this throughout the school year. RISE stands for Reaching Independence in a Structured Environment, and it was officially approved by the Department of Education in November of this past school year, or this current school year, I should say. So the team has implemented what they could have RISE this year with a full-blown plan going into the next school year. Starting before I came on board during the 23-24 school year, there was a need that was identified to add to our in-district programming for students. And this is to expand individualized special ed programming. So what was identified as the criteria for students who may receive their instruction through the RISE program is that these students require either one-on-one or two-on-one specially designed instruction from a special education teacher, that they may have a one-on-one paraprofessional or registered behavior technician for support to carry over their skills and therapies. They may require access to or support from our BCBA. They may also require ABA or applied behavior analysis programming and or life skills instruction, and in addition to 2 or more related services. So that could be speech and language, that could be occupational therapy, physical therapy, any of the above. So the goal for this is to maximize the time that these students are able to access within their general education classroom. We want to be able to help them develop the independent skills that they need and be able to carry those skills over into their classroom with their general education peers. We were fortunate to be able to utilize some of the new space that was built on to this year. There are 2 adjoining classrooms. One of the classrooms is within the new addition, and then the other classroom is next to it within the older portion of the building, but with a nice bright space. So between both classrooms, there are centers set up for learning. There are spaces dedicated to ABA therapy where students can receive more quiet one-on-one instruction, and then the ability for students who might need a break from their classroom to be able to go in and access tools needed to be able to regulate themselves and get back to their classroom space. Continuing at Hampstead Central School, Dr. Cheney had briefly mentioned in her board update at our last meeting about the preschool study that we had underway this year. Always looking at how we can improve and expand upon our preschool programming and reach more families within the community. I'm excited to share that at the last meeting you approved the hiring of a new preschool teacher, so we will have 2 dual certified preschool teachers going into the upcoming school year. Dual certified meaning that they're both early childhood as well as early childhood special ed certified. What this allows is for us to be able to more evenly distribute our students on IEPs as well as the paraprofessional support that some of these students require. We, as an outcome of our preschool study, have determined some adjustments for their arrival and dismissal procedures, listening to our families and making sure that our students are safely going in and out of our preschool room area. We are also going to be implementing, one of our teachers will be implementing a multi-age classroom. So we were fortunate enough to be able to do some preschool visits and area programming. And something that we observed in a couple of different programs was a multi-age 3-4 classroom. The teacher spoke very highly to the benefits of putting 3-year-olds in with 4-year-olds and how they can learn from their peers, and we saw some of this in action and it was really exciting. So we are going to trial this next year and see how it goes. We're also looking for the next school year to expand opportunities for our preschoolers within the larger school. So giving them some more opportunities for school-wide events, for opportunities within grade levels, as well as, if the schedule allows, maybe some exposure to our unified arts classes. And the other consideration that we are hoping to be able to implement is in the springtime of next year, using the fall as our pre-planning, to be able to offer a drop-in preschool program for some students and parents. We have a lot of students that turn 3 later on in the school year, and sometimes it's too much for them to join a full school day, or I shouldn't say full, but half of a school day or full preschool program. So we would like to be able to offer some opportunities for families to come together, a different focus each time they come. One could be for motor skills, one could be for communication, socialization, early learning opportunities, and also help to make that connection with other families within the community. This thought is just in its infancy, so as I mentioned, we're hoping to use some of the fall to plan out what this may look like. Talk to some of our area preschools that have something similar in place, and hopefully be able to launch it in the spring of 2026. So more to come about that. Reading. I keep telling people that ever since my very first interview with you last summer, one of the areas that continues to surface is reading within our district. What we're doing about the high number of needs for specialized reading instruction, our reading tutors, our students who receive reading instruction through outside resources, and what we can continue to do to boost our capacity in district. So we are currently and continually evaluating our contracted services versus what we can continue to offer in district for our reading services. One thing that we just recently did as of the end of last week is we posted an anticipated reading specialist position. This would be a 5th reading specialist with the idea that we will continue to have 2 at HCS, 2 at HMS, and then 1 that would be between the buildings as a district-wide. The funds for this position would be coming from the contracted services budget under student services. And again, just to continue to build our capacity for in-district, we're always supporting educators in the area of literacy. I know that the letters training has just launched a new cohort. Many of us in district have signed up. I actually signed up for the administrators portion. There's a couple of seats still open for the early childhood cohort, and then some of our other teachers have made it into the elementary. So LETTERS stands for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. It focuses on the scientific research behind how children learn to read, including the importance of phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, reading comprehension, and fluency. And this is open to special educators, regular educators. There is no limit. And then the other piece is that our English Language Arts, or ELA vertical team, has come together a few times, specifically recently. We met with Kate McCaffrey from the state a couple of weeks ago, and we're really looking to outline our literacy plan as a district, preschool through grade 8. So to give you a little preview of that, we developed a couple of documents last Friday during our professional development. One of them was to look specifically at screening tools that we have, what we use in Tier 1 through either universal screening or give during the benchmark period 3 times a year. Tier 2 for students that need progress monitoring monthly, or screeners for additional supports as determined necessary. And then Tier 3, which is our intensive support for students who receive one-on-one specially designed instruction. So this is not broken down by grade level, but just gives a snapshot of everything that we've currently identified that we have access to and are using in district, with plans to look at where we might need to continue to build going into next school year. And then this was an additional document that we put together, and this speaks to curriculum and supports for all students, which is your Tier 1, Tier 2, which is your intervention in small groups for students who are below grade level, and then Tier 3 for that intensive intervention support, which is potentially one-on-one. So we do have a number of tools, curriculum, that we have access to and use depending upon how it is determined to meet the needs of the students. Medicaid to schools. So I am excited to share that so far to date, we have been able to bring in $18,538, which is quite an increase from the previous school year, 294% to be exact. So something that we have really focused on this year, we have a really good working relationship with our vendor. We have a new point of contact. She's set up monthly meetings with us and is available in between those meetings if we have questions or challenges, and is really proactive behind the scenes to help us out. She's also made herself available for one-on-one training if needed, or questions with staff, especially as they may be hired mid-year. We did bring in specialized training for our case managers and related service providers so that we could talk about what our medically related services might look like and know exactly what services we can bill for reimbursement. And then just continuous monitoring, making sure that our parent consent forms are uploaded, making sure that there's no sessions that are blocked on our end, not allowing to go through for billing. So in speaking to our planning, or my planning as a department for our upcoming school year, the 25-26 school year. So our students who are accessing our RISE program at HCS currently only go up to 3rd grade. So next year we'll have our first group of 4th graders, which means that we need to start planning for what that will look like when they come here to HMS for the 26-27 school year. That includes what our staffing will look like, what that space will look like, and what other needs we may have. Our monitoring for the LEA determinations, so that will be ongoing as I work with the state and with our team to make sure that we can bring up our scores. Our program evaluation of reading, again, ongoing. We're hoping that with the potential increase of a reading specialist, that may help to move us in the right direction, in addition to continue monitoring and working with our ELA vertical team. The implementation of preschool programming and early intervention services, so through the outcome of our preschool study, as well as working closely with our team. We're always looking to make improvements, as well as forward plan beyond next school year. So what we can do to really reach out to more people within the community and make sure students are receiving the early intervention that they require. looking for additional opportunities for maximizing revenue. So hoping to continue to bring in more for Medicaid to schools, as well as for special education aid. I know that was a hot topic back in the fall due to a decrease in what we were able to bring in. And so I'm working with Jessica Kate as a new member of our team to really look at more ways of submitting for special education aid. Just with everything changing and all the happenings at the federal level, just continuing to monitor the actions and work with our administrative team at the SAU as well as the building level to make sure that we're up to date and everything. And then we are going to be part of what's called the PAGS process in the spring of 2026. So that stands for Preparing for Program Approval and General Supervision Monitoring. That's when the Bureau of Special Education at the state level comes in. They will start this in the fall, and we're part of a cohort of districts that go through this together. They will pull files from each school, as well as from our high schoolers at Pinkerton and our out-of-district group of students, and the number of files they determine to pull is based on where we fell within our LEA determination. So where we fell means that 7% of each student on an IEP at HCS, HMS, Pinkerton, as well as outer district will be pulled. I could calculate that number, but I don't have it off the top of my head. And they will also be looking for us to update a lot of our forms, a lot of our manuals, so our LEA manual that needs to be posted on our website will be updated. They'll come in and do an evaluation of all the programs that we have approved, whether that's Learning Center, whether that's RISE, whether that's intensive needs, any program placement that we can pull into an IEP, they will do a monitor and approval of. So I've heard from colleagues that it is a very intensive process, and so we are all kind of helping each other out as one district goes through. They share their takeaways in hopes that the next can benefit from that. So that will be a big undertaking, and I'll provide more updates as we embark on that process. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
My first one is, I've never worked in a school with 2 reading specialists in a building. So my question is, what are our special educators doing?
So our special educators are able to provide specially designed instruction to our students, but when you think about if they need even more intensive, smaller groups, maybe longer periods of time than our WIN block allows, then that reading specialist, the idea is that person is even more highly trained and able to work with 1 or 2 students at a time, really able to find maybe more than the 30 minutes if they require more for that intensive reading instruction, and then able to do some more diagnostic progress monitoring and assessments that our case managers may not be able to do.
Are our case managers not biweekly progress monitoring our reading students?
They are progress monitoring. I cannot confirm for you if it's biweekly or monthly, but I can find out for sure.
Typically, in most districts, I see it's a 45-minute at least block of reading. Are we looking at adjusting our scheduling at either school to make that model work?
I will have to talk to Dr. Cheney about what she has planned for HCS in the fall. I know she is trying to finalize as best she can the schedule, so that actually this next week the case managers will be coming together, looking at IEP services and how those will be scheduled for the upcoming school year. So that will help to determine some of that need. Here at the middle school, Mrs. Bernard has put out a draft schedule as well. So again, I'm working with the case managers, and we are finding those pockets of time throughout the day in which students can receive their special ed instruction without missing core classes.
I know
So
it's
it
called
varies.
something different,
It
but
varies.
Yeah, I've seen all kinds, but usually it's like a 45 minutes, especially at the elementary school, like a big block to get that in.
And it's harder for students that receive more services, as you know.
Agreed, yes. I guess one of the things in just hearing about 2 reading specialists is I'm curious how many kids are requiring this intensive need of services at.
So our reading specialists right now in both buildings, one serves more for students who might at HCS qualify for Title I, might be more that tier 2, like they need a little bit more than what they're getting in the classroom, but not to the intensity of a student with an educational disability. Versus the second, I don't want to say second reading specialist, but the additional reading specialist within the building is working specifically with students on IEPs, helping to write the goals for their services and collaborating closely with the special ed teams.
Do we have interventionists that are also working with our tier 2 and 3 students?
This year we have 2 at HCS and HMS, I'm sorry. Do we have intervention? I'm drawing a blank. Interventionists here working with students? Yes. And some of that is pushing into the classroom during that ELA block as well to help them access rather than pulling them out.
I know you'll probably be looking at your MTSS models and all that. Random suggestion that I've seen is where people take their tier 2 and 3 and they actually mingle those based on what they need. And I know different schools have different ideas whether they think that's actually okay or not. But it's a better way to get more bang for your buck and align kind of the needs. Orton Gillingham has been something I've seen on social media in regards to the schools. I guess I'm trained, I'm not certified. I'm curious how many people are trained versus certified in our schools, and I also kind of just want to make a plug that Orton Gillingham is a methodology, it is not a program.
Exactly.
So I'm curious if we're using an Orton Gillingham aligned program consistently through our tier 2 and 3 so that there's like a sequence that all of our intervention kids are following and we know how they're making progress. Like SPIRE.
Yep.
Or
well,
UFly.
UFly is popularly used here. For those that do not know what that stands for, it's the University of Florida Literacy Institute. And I know the University of Florida has put out a lot in the area of literacy. So it focuses on phonemic blending and segmenting, accuracy, automaticity, decoding, reading, and spelling. We do have access to that for tier 2 and tier 3. Based on, again, on the student's needs and how much more is needed for our tier 3. So I know that that is widely used in both of the buildings, HCS and HMS. I can get back to you specifically about Orton Gillingham. I do know, and again, as I'm still learning people's skill set and of what they have in their toolboxes, we do have a lot of people who have been very highly trained, but I can't speak specifically about who's certified. I know our reading specialists that fall under servicing special ed students in both buildings are certified near Orton Gillingham.
And I'll make a plug for special ed that I think a lot of the times there was a time when you didn't put dyslexia in an IEP. You can now put that in an IEP. And the best practice for a reading disability is, I know when I work with kids, I'm giving them what I would give a student with dyslexia anyways, whether they're diagnosed or not. So I trust that that's happening. I guess I'm just really curious about the barriers between our special educators serving more students versus having reading specialists in the building.
And I think the other piece is that we want more Hampstead highly qualified educators to be servicing our students so that we can start reining in how much we are pushing out for contracting.
Yeah, so I'd just be curious who's trained in what and how we plan to get people trained.
Absolutely.
Regarding the preschool outcomes category, I guess, in the results of that assessment, so correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the reason for our low score was basically the amount of students that were receiving services outside of the classroom.
Yes.
So,
Which is always a struggle when you're talking about our little ones that get so distracted in a classroom.
and I know with this preschool study, I thought I heard you mention basically the kind of the goal of more integration, but can you, I guess, can you confirm that is the goal, and that I guess through this preschool study that's part of, I guess, what's being recognized?
Yeah, so one of our long-term goals, so we set short-term achievable, what can we implement right away starting next school year, and then longer-term goals. And one of them is to have preschool dedicated service providers that can be integrated right into those classrooms. They can run centers, they can co-teach, they can really provide to all of our incoming students regardless of whether they have a disability or they don't, because we recognize that early intervention is really important for all students. So we're hoping to get there. I think that they try their best to push in and get into those classrooms as much as possible, but since our service providers go across multiple grade levels, it becomes more challenging as the year progresses.
And then with the disproportionate number of students opting out of state testing, that's where the state, I guess, will come in and give you strategies on how to improve?
Yeah, well, we've actually already started those discussions. I started with Nicole and just trying to drive home the importance of participating in our state testing. We know it's not fun, but it is important, and it does count against us when a family opts their student out. So we know that there are various reasons for why families choose to opt their child out, but the participation is important. And we'll continue to work on a plan to be able to message that.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
I know that there was an email that went out at one point about like opting out of iReady or Dibbles or something to that extent. And I feel like sometimes parents get a lot of emails from schools, right? And they don't necessarily understand, well, this is iReady, this is Dibbles, this is SAS. I think when we send out an email saying you can opt your kid out of this test, it kind of, to a lot of us as parents, it just is like a
gives the green light.
I'm going to stop them out of everything.
Right.
So I think we just have to be very intentional when we send that email and be very clear about it, or just don't send it. And if a parent says my kid's not taking iReady, then okay, they don't take iReady.
And this is specifically based on SAS, not on our local assessments.
I totally get that. But
Yes.
when we send something out that says you can opt your kid out of X, Y, and Z.
Be clear.
I know as a parent, I hear what I want to hear most of the time, so.
Does the RISE program, sorry, that's it, right? Is that going to help with, I'm looking at like indicator 5A or the preschool outcomes. Does that affect keeping them in the classroom since it's a program, or no?
So, yes, so for 5A for educational environments, that's talking kindergarten and up. So, yes, well, some of that is part of what I'm going to work with the state on. So I know that there's a lot of question about that placement page on an IEP, which is supposed to reflect all time out of the classroom. But then when you look at our page of an IEP that talks about the services and what those look like and what environment they happen in, sometimes our services are written daily, weekly, monthly. So we need to kind of rein it in and bring some more order to that. And that's what I'm hoping to get clarity from with the state, so that we can improve that score and make sure that students who truly do need more time out of their classroom we're not getting penalized on the other end when we receive this report.
And I guess I'll pose the question to the board. So I've had the privilege of seeing this report and all of the specifics around each bullet-pointed category item here. Would it be helpful to you all to be able to see the specifics of that report, and is that allowed to be delivered to us? I guess that.
Not only that, but we would publish the report on our website. And I think there was some intent with like, let's present the LEA determination so you get a sense of it, and then we can give you the full document, because the full document is really thick.
64 pages.
It's in-depth.
It offers
Very
a
in-depth.
full explanation of some of these areas, like ed environments. So that's something that certainly we would distribute to the whole board and then also make available to the public.
Excellent.
I love that you're concentrating on early interventions, because the earlier, the easier, the more cost-effective, the more time they have later. We went super deep on all the different interventions, but the interventions that we're using, they match up with science of reading.
Mhm.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Are any of the reading specialists helping to coach up Tier 1 instruction, going into classrooms, modeling certain stuff, especially with, say, new teachers?
Yes, and I know that they would like more opportunities for that. So they recognize the need beyond a few handfuls of time, especially as you mentioned with our newest educators that are right out of college. They need that support, or that haven't been in the field for very long.
Yeah, because as soon as you get into interventions, you kind of lose that sometimes.
Yes.
This is kind of a broader question, but how do we monitor compliance by special ed teachers, classroom teachers, to make sure that IEPs are actually in 504s and being followed through with?
That's a great question. So I meet with the special ed teams in each building twice a month. So this actually happens to be a week in which I met with the HCS team today, and I'll meet with the HMS team on Thursday. Those opportunities allow themselves for us to do some check-ins to see if there's any challenges with getting paperwork returned or scheduling meetings and working through what we might be able to do to break down that barrier. And then between the building administration and the case manager, we're really hoping that they can be that level 1 to monitor implementation of IEPs within the classrooms. And then if teachers need support beyond that, then we analyze that case by case and determine who would be the best to go in, maybe model how to implement an accommodation or carry over a goal into the classroom.
And to add to that, how frequently are case managers in the classroom monitoring the, fidelity of the IEP?
So they do meet with the grade level teams regularly. So I'd say that they're doing more collaborating on a regular basis, and that the going into the classrooms is more on a case-by-case basis. I can't say that it's something that's regularly scheduled, but it's certainly something that we could strive for more regularly done.
Do they do some co-teaching?
So here at HMS, they scheduled for co-teaching for this school year. Unfortunately, it did not get up and running in the capacity that they had hoped for. Our case managers had received some training on co-teaching, I believe it was last school year, but it was not being implemented in its truest fashion. So is it something we could revisit? Yes, but it's not happening in the way that we expect it to.
Co-teaching is hard, and I think it depends on your
requires a
caseload,
lot
whether
of
that's
planning time.
practical or not.
No, it takes a lot of time. It's if the team stays together, the special ed stays in that same grade level. Yeah, no, it's just, that was more just wondering, like, if you can get that out, that's great, but in my opinion, not a priority, because special ed teachers are overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have to do. Yeah, and then just, I do like that you're more proactive being in the buildings, doing check-ins, because a lot of the times you find out that IEPs aren't being followed, either because it's showing up in data, which is way too late, or because parents are complaining. So the less siloed and the more integrated the special ed teachers can be, and the classroom teachers can ask for help and get that help, I think is super important. So thank you.
Of course, no problem.
Board members, any other questions or comments? Melissa?
I'm excited for the preschool, the drop-in opportunities. I think that's great.
Yeah, we're excited to see if we can get that up and running and what that might look like. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the effort that went into this update. All right, moving on to facilities budget summer projects update with Jeff Mackey. It's been a while.
A while, actually. All right, so a quick update on current budget. As the school year's wrapping up, we are pretty much getting to the bottom of the barrel of my budget. I've basically gone through the complete every penny. With that being said, we had some unexpected purchases this year. Here's just a few highlights of them. We got a new lawnmower, which was roughly $16,000. I replaced the fire panel here at middle school, which was roughly $9,000. I've got some door access control work to be done that's currently happening at Central School for $2,500. I had to do a roof repair. When we added the cell boosters, I had to go through a roof penetration and had to bring my roofer in. That was a couple thousand. Replaced a slide section at Central School for $1,800 and a couple of kitchen accessories that was about $2,000. So just to give you an idea of what can come up and how we're spending our money. We had some generous bids for a couple of the projects I had going into the summer, which aided in balancing some of that money. The rest of it, we just kind of looked and kind of picked out of quite a few of my account lines to make sure we were able to make those purchases. Moving on to summer projects, it's going to be don't have too much going on due to me moving some projects around. I'm going to be doing a roof section at Central School. I was originally going to do a smaller section. I'm moving on to a larger one that seems to be failing a lot quicker. I can handle the smaller one if we have to do small repairs to it, but I want to get this big one done. That's been an issue for a while. It's just over 30 years old, and it's due time to get done. And I'm replacing the PFAS tanks here for the drinking water. When I budgeted for this back in the fall, the company that we go through for water filtration misunderstood me. I needed 2 tanks. He only quoted me 1, but his quote was pretty archaic, didn't have a lot of numbers on there. So I had to move some money around to make sure that happened. Both of those RFPs have already been out. They're semi-awarded. I've locked them in to do the work done in the summer. July 1 will be ready to go. And I'm going to focus on just a couple of smaller flooring projects, most notably the Central School foyer bathrooms that just need a heavy upgrade over at Central School, and maybe a couple other. Besides that, I'm just going to focus on our yearly cleaning and maintenance and anything else that comes up. So that's about it. Any questions?
Thanks
Awesome.
for that update.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Moving on to the suspension authorization. So annually, the board authorizes the superintendent to suspend students beyond 10 days as outlined in RSA 193:13. So I will make a motion that authorizes this. Any questions around this, board members? All approved. All right, moving on to general assurances discussion with Mr. Dowd.
In front of you, we have a document dated May 20th, and that is a general assurance packet from the Department of Ed. We are required to have review these and have the school board share initial off on these assurances. This had not been the case up until a few years ago, and quite frankly, it's presenting a nice opportunity to remind the board and remind the public what our obligations are when we receive federal funds. Starting on page 1 of 16, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but we're stating that we have the legal authority to enter into federal grant programs. We have no personal gain, conflicts of interest, etc. That will follow a number of obscure laws, including the Hatch Act and the often used Laboratory Animal Welfare Act of 1966, which we will ensure compliance with. We also are responsible for, on page 3 of 16, under section 19, to buy America preference for infrastructure projects. These do put a little bit of burden on my office in particular to make sure that whatever we're doing in these cases, we are complying with what those requirements are. I'll fill you in a little bit more on that. We have to undertake reporting. Typically, we also have to maintain a drug-free workplace. And I'm going to skip over to section B on page 5. Here you'll see that we're committing that we have sufficient financial management systems in place to account for the money that we've received and to be able to spend it appropriately. Section 2 specifies the policies and procedures we're required to have and in compliance with federal law. You can see that spills over onto page 6. Section 3 speaks to internal controls, which we do have, and I know that that's not only on the administration end, but that's also on, for example, our grant writers end, and when we submit for reimbursement. Student services, Melissa McDonald has a lot to do when she is putting together these grants, submitting them. Cole Tomaselli as well. We go into the assurance goes into what are considered allowable costs, audit requirements. Page 7 speaks to typical reporting. Page 8 of 16, section 7 speaks to debarment, suspension, and other responsibility matters. Just to give you an idea what the requirements are, and they are arcane in some instances. In this one, we actually have to go through and make sure that if we're working with a vendor, that vendor is not on a list of debarred vendors by the federal government. We have to do that like every time we transact with them. So it gets a little unwieldy, sorry. Drug free workplace, we talked about that. Page 10 of 16, there is some obligation here on the part of the school board. The LEA assures that it shall comply with the provisions of RSA 193.13, which specifies that a pupil bringing a firearm as defined in section 921, yada, yada, without authorization for the superintendent or designee shall be expelled from school by the local school board for a period of not less than 12 months. And nothing would prevent the school district from providing educational services to such students in an alternative setting. So there are some requirements here that the board needs to be up on in policy. We're okay, but just good to know. Obviously, we have some lobbying provisions, what's prohibited. We are on page 11, we are subject to what's called sub-recipient monitoring. The federal government provides the grants to the state. The state's the recipient. We're considered a sub-recipient of the state. We have obligations. We've tracked personnel costs in certain cases. Page 12 speaks to, protected prayer in public schools, purchasing and procurement under 16, retention, access to records, Stevens Amendment, transfer of disciplinary records in compliance with federal law. We'll comply also with FERPA. And there's some definitions at the end, but this provides a really nice opportunity to let the board know, let the public know, we do receive quite a bit in federal funding, 600,000 plus, but there are obligations that we owe to the federal government in return, and being good stewards of that money, tracking it, and being able to handle it on the administrative end. It's always good for the board to know, for the public to know. It does come at a cost, and we're diligently working to manage those resources as best we can.
Now, when we do the yearly audit, is this something that they go over to look for compliance of this?
They do. At a higher threshold, you need a single audit, and those thresholds have risen. We were subject to single audit, which is an audit just on your grants fund, just on policies, procedures, compliance with federal law. They do go over this, not necessarily with the federal grant eye on it, as much as that we're complying with our own policies, which are in compliance with what the federal regulations would require.
Good. So we have an outside expert that fully understands everything that's written in there and can help you in case we have any issues.
I think our audit firm has a couple people who really just do the single audits, and they're great to be able to, if we ever bounce anything off of anyone, just to see what they've seen and that sort of thing. It's a very specific niche practice that they probably go in and do a day or two at even larger districts. That's all.
Good, because as much as I nerd out about some of this stuff, this is a lot. So,
oh yeah.
Thank you.
All right. At this point, I will make a motion to authorize Mr. Thompson and Mr. Dowd to independently or jointly apply for and receive on behalf of the district federal and state grants and funding, which may include approving and signing of the appropriate forms as needed, and to file such authorization forms with the New Hampshire Department of Ed. Second. Any other questions or discussion? All approved. I will make sure all of this document gets signed and initialed as needed by the end of tonight.
feel the pain of administrative compliance with federal funds.
Yes. All right, moving on to the 2024-2025 superintendent evaluation update. So since our meeting on May 13th, in accordance with CBIR, the evaluation of the superintendent, we will go into a non-public session tonight to approve the written evaluation of the superintendent. We drafted a letter to Bob, so that will be read to him, and there will be a final update at the school board meeting on June 10th before the evaluation process wraps up by the June 15th deadline. All right, moving on to our policies. So board members, in your packets, you have 3 different policies in there for your review. One is BBB, school board elections. Modifications address vacancies for unexpired terms as reflected in policy BBBE, and some removal of language. We have BEA, school board meetings. Revisions include language change to reflect that boards are now required to offer public comments. A public comments section is outlined in policy BEDH, and a slight name change to the policy to clarify that it speaks in general to regular board meetings, and then IHBAB, special education evaluations. So go ahead and look those over.
For IHBAB, when we do procedural safeguards, is there an option to give it digitally so that we don't have to kill a tree all the time?
I will defer that question to Melissa. The question was, can we provide procedural safeguards electronically?
Yes, we can. Awesome. Thank you. Yes, just in case they want to take it, but yeah, to try to save a significant amount of trees.
So those were for second reading and adoption. So I will make a motion to adopt policies. Absolutely.
So for policy BBB, are we just not going to have a student rep anymore?
Yes, so at the policy meeting, we had discussed sort of the process for the selection of a student rep. And we want to explore a process that would result in maybe some vetting by the board. So what we would like to do is work on a proposal that we would bring to the board in early August. And I want to be cautious about having too much of a conversation because I haven't talked to Pinkerton about this. Then we also discussed, Principal Bernard brought up the idea about, we have a Pinkerton rep, but we don't really have a Hampstead School District rep, and perhaps having a middle school person join the board as a non-voting member as well. All of this does not have to be codified in policy. It can be part of a procedure. The board could choose to make a policy. And we're even considering, it's a big obligation and we have 2 meetings a month. Perhaps first meeting of the month could be Pinkerton, second meeting of the month could be the middle school. So we certainly, Principal Bernard has offered to sort of take the lead on this and, even have a representative of the board maybe work to bring a proposal in August. What you see before you really codifies what's in law. Because we're a K through 8 district, we're not required to have a high school rep. although the law does say that if we were a K through 12, we would need to.
Yeah. Again, Pinkerton would need to agree to this approach, but owning the process, I guess, as a district would allow us to kind of build kids starting at the middle school level to then potentially be the Pinkerton rep moving forward once they get there. They're already familiar with the process. They know what this looks like. They have the skill set to do well in the position.
As long as there's a plan.
There's a plan. All right, so I will make a motion to adopt policies BBB, BEA, and IHBAB. Any questions or discussion? All approved. And board members, also in your packets is policy ACN for first reading. It's the accommodation of nursing mothers. So this required policy is not on the books per state and federal laws, mandating accommodations in the workplace for employees who have lactation or lactation-related needs. Both statutes only apply to employees. However, since students who are pregnant or have related medical conditions are protected from discrimination under statutes like Title IX, the district proposes inclusion of students as a protected class under the same policy written for employees for purposes of simplification as allowed by law.
Do we have, we've done this before in both buildings, do we have like a plan already in place for both buildings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is more codifying it in policy, but we've already been
Correct.
doing it.
We're fully implemented here. We've not had the need for this accommodation at the central school, but we will have a space up and running in August, September, as our staff come back.
Okay. Thank you for being proactive.
And there was a lot of discussion in the policy meetings around this one, particularly on just how to best accommodate our staff in these situations. You know, what is servicing them, what's helping them in the most realistic way throughout the day in their jobs, basically.
I'll make a motion to accept, or to move policy ACN to second reading.
Second.
All approved. All right, moving on to board comments and correspondence.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Missy.
All right. Just at the federal level, Linda McMahon, this new Department of Education Secretary, released supplemental priorities that were published in the Federal Register for a 30-day public comment period. The public comments will end on June 20th. She has 3 priorities. Number 1 is promoting evidence-based literacy, which I think is great. That's one of our board policies, having the science of reading. New Hampshire also had free trainings, as we talked about earlier, for LETTERS, which is the language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. It's a comprehensive professional development program designed to equip teachers and with deep knowledge and expertise in the science of reading. New Hampshire ironically paid for this using federal funds from the American Rescue Plan. Priority 2 is expanding educational choice. And priority 3 is returning education to the states. On May 20th, there was a press release from the U.S. Department of Education, Secretary McMahon's supplemental grant priorities. Grant priorities are going to inform the department's discriminatory grant programs. The release states that, quote, under the Biden administration, 4 out of 6 of the Secretary's supplemental priorities advanced DEI, quote, and examples listed include, and the one that I find the most concerning is, quote, promoting social emotional learning. Just letting people know that public comments are open till June 20th.
I went to Pinkerton Sending Towns, which they had the newest therapy dog there, which was quite the hit, which is pretty awesome. They're also allowing teachers to do ESOL training. There's 7 teachers doing it, which ESOL training helps a lot with just general teaching. It adds to it. Something that did come up was open enrollment, how it might affect Pinkerton and how it might affect the cost for Pinkerton. Pinkerton feels that they would already be able to absorb, because their size changes in enrollment fairly easily, and it would only add to the services and what they could do, and they feel comfortable with it. It is something that is still up at the New Hampshire state level, and open enrollment would allow kids to shift in and out of districts when they wanted to, which would make budgeting hard. Kids could possibly go from district to district based off of academics or athletics, depending on parts of the year, which would make things very complicated. The language is pretty vague, though, so the ability for there should be some district level control on how many kids we can allow in, but it's all up in the air for now. But that was a significant discussion. And then kind of off of that, New Hampshire School Board Association, I sent out to the board, they're opening for resolutions. So if we wanted, they're basically the people that lobby in Concord for us. So if we had specific things that we wanted to try to put before at the state conference in October, that's a discussion we could have. But we have to do a resolution. It would have to be approved by the board to go up for debate before August 1st, so before we go to the summer. So
I had the opportunity to basically participate in Teacher Appreciation Week through the PTSA. So we handed out teacher supplies, basically set up a room where teachers could stop by and grab supplies that they needed at both the central school and the middle school, and then also set up breakfast each day, basically snacks and treats that teachers could stop by and get. So I feel awesome to be able to participate in that, and again, it just speaks to how great our teachers are, and they deserve a week of appreciation. So thank you to the PTSA for donating all of those awesome things and giving the teachers what they need. Anything else to share?
You skateboarded in a parade.
I skateboarded in a parade.
And didn't kill yourself doing it.
All right. Moving on to the personnel report.
In your packets, we have one nomination. That's for a professional staff member, and that is for Erin O'Neill to fill the HMS science teacher position at 8th grade. The name may seem familiar, as she's currently a paraeducator at the Central School, and prior to that was 8th grade long-term science teacher at the middle school. So she's coming back to the middle school.
We need to approve that, correct?
That would
All
be
right.
correct.
I will make a motion to approve the nomination for Erin O'Neill for the HMS science teacher position.
I love the fact that you keep finding really high qualified and experienced people, which is amazing.
Well, that being said, we do have some student services positions that are available, so if anyone out there is looking.
I'll just say I'm delighted to see her name on this list, so congratulations, Erin. All approved. Thank you.
All right, and moving on to the superintendent report, just real quick, because I know it's getting late. Thought I would start with Nicole Tomaselli, who will give us an update on the Professional Learning Day last Friday.
That real quick, so I'll be very quick because it is getting late. So last Friday, the 23rd, was our last Professional Learning Day of the year. As you know, we have these scattered pretty much one opportunity a month. Some are early release days where our paraprofessionals do side-by-side training, and others are full days where our professional staff engages in professional learning. So we had a variety of events happening this past week. I think the two highlights really for the majority of our staff was the Eureka Squared math training for all teachers and case managers at the elementary school. That was our launch to the new math curriculum that you recently approved. The trainer was engaging and fun, and our pilot teachers brought all their materials to the space so people could kind of see the manipulatives in action and see the student work texts. And then they did a variety of different problem sets and kind of looked at the approach. So we'll be getting formal feedback from our staff on the whole day in the next few days. I just sent the survey out today, but that was a huge highlight to kind of get that underway. I anticipate needing more training for new hires next year and then throughout the year as they start unpacking this program to use it. We also prepared, Melissa McDonald and I you saw the GAP proficiency data this evening from Student Services. In discussions with our ELA vertical team, which consists of our principals, our reading specialists, and some of our tier 2, tier 3 interventionists, and that information that was in that GAP proficiency report, we decided that it's really urgent and necessary to educate all of our middle school staff about the science of reading. We recognize we spent a lot of energy on our elementary teachers in the science of reading, but we now have cohorts of kids coming up that still are struggling with decoding, encoding, multisyllabic words, etc. So we prepared a presentation along with our reading specialists who work with these children closely to kind of educate the masses on understanding the shift towards science of reading and structured literacy. That led to some incredible conversations between regular ed and tier 1, and how do we stay on grade level with rigorous content and also accommodate children who are struggling to read that content. So we've come up with a variety of strategies, and more importantly, the teachers are really committed to working together on this and are asking for more time to brainstorm and model. So some of the things you were asking earlier, I'm really excited because the teachers are saying, can we do walkthroughs? Can we see each other? Can we have model teachers come in? So I think all of this will play out next year, if not only during professional learning, but just throughout the year. We also had time for our related service providers to unpack trainings that they attended a related service provider academy earlier in the year, so it was very helpful for them to be able to get together and kind of collaborate and share resources. We had a vertical ELA meeting, and Melissa showed you some of the work products that came from that with labeling, the inventory of assessments, as well as work tools that we use. So it was a pretty busy day. There's always room for improvement, so I'll be looking forward to the staff feedback. I'm very happy with the PD committee's work this year to pull off variety of different offerings. It's challenging to provide meaningful PD to all of the different facets of our staff, but the more people engage on the PD committee, the more we know what is needed, so that's very helpful. Any questions?
No.
And with Mr. Dowd, I know Dr. Hubner talked a little bit about the Sending Towns meeting. Anything you wanted to add?
It was nice. I think that what those meetings give an opportunity for the school to do is to elaborate a little bit more on what their internal processes are, and this meeting may focus a little bit on course and grade selection, which I think is very important for us who don't have to necessarily go through, we don't go through it necessarily, to see what their actual grade progression is like, what planning goes into it, using actual forms that are projected so we can see the progression of how classes are selected from teacher recommendation at the middle school level all the way through to matriculation as their seniors. So I appreciate that they take the time and the effort to make us aware of what their internal processes are so we can better assist our graduates as they go into Pickering. So that's it.
All right. In addition, last Monday, I had the opportunity, I was invited by Senator Maggie Hassan to participate in an educational roundtable about the impacts of the elimination of federal funding. I participated on behalf of the superintendents of the state of New Hampshire, and it was a really interesting conversation because there was a variety of stakeholders there beyond public education. We had post-secondary education, educational nonprofits and NGOs that participated in the conversation. So you really get to look at how federal dollars are used to support education just beyond public education. In attendance was also Representative Maggie Goodlander. I had an opportunity to talk to both of our representatives about creating future opportunities as part of a feedback loop to make sure that us public educators in the trenches have an opportunity to engage with all of our elected representatives with some of the changes that are coming at the federal level and also at the state level as well. So it was a really great opportunity. And from that actually came, there was a wonderful article in the Boston Globe that went in the print edition on Sunday about the book vending machine at the Hampstead Central School. Really wonderful piece. For Hampstead to be in the print edition of the Boston Globe, that's a pretty big deal. So to highlight something as positive as the book vending machine. And I do want to thank their reporter, Amanda Goki. She is the New Hampshire correspondent for the Boston Globe and has taken interest in public education and even Hampstead. I know that there's another story planned. I won't give away what that story is, but so we can look to sort of build on that relationship that we have with some of our partners in the press. I also want, again, I know Principal Bernard mentioned it, but just congratulate Jen Howard as semifinalist for New Hampshire Teacher of the Year. It is becoming this tradition where we have a number of our staff that are nominated every year that are put on the short list for semifinalists. And so congratulations to Jen. I really can't think of anyone that would represent us better. Then I also just wanted to mention too that we have a few donations. So under our policy KCD, I am authorized to approve donations under $2,500. So I have two. These are both for the Central School. One is a $170 donation from Get On Board. It's a local business. They held a fundraiser to support an assembly program that the Central School had for No Brain the Same Assembly, which I heard was a huge success. I was not able to attend. And we also have a $100 donation from Cynthia and Lester LaBelle for the book vending machine. So we thank both of those individuals and organizations, and always appreciate when people support our public school program. So that's it for the superintendent report. I'll take any questions that folks might have.
Okay. Board members, at this point, we are going to go into a non-public for 91A3, 2A and C, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against him or her unless the employee affected has a right to a meeting and requests that that meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. And C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself unless such person requests an open meeting. Melissa, will you please take roll call? Oh, thank you. Sorry about that.
So moved. Second.
And now.
Thank you for that. Ms. Denton? Yes. Dr. Hebner? Yes. Mr. Cabarrus?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer? Dr. Poor? Yes. Okay, thank you.
And we will not be coming back out of non-public.